Every year, millions of Americans book flights to Mexico chasing the exact same photo. Turquoise water, white sand, a cold drink with a little umbrella in it. Nobody shows you what happens after the photo is taken. Somewhere on this list sits a resort town where the murder count made international news 2 times in a single year. And somewhere else on this exact same list, sitting inside the exact same state, is a small town that crime researchers just ranked as one of the calmest destinations in the entire country. Same coastline, same state line, 2 completely different realities, and almost nobody talks about why. We are counting down 11 Mexican resort destinations, starting with the ones you need to cancel tonight, and ending with the one nobody is posting about yet, but probably should be. Stay until the very end, because the safest name on this entire list will surprise you more than the most dangerous one. Before we start, one number puts the whole country in context. Mexico currently ranks 137th out of 163 countries measured on the Global Peace Index, well below the regional average. That single number is exactly why so many people assume every square mile of this country carries the same level of risk. It does not. Mexico is the only country in the world where the United States State Department publishes a separate advisory level for every single one of its states. Some of those states sit at the calmest tier that exists. Others sit at the same tier as telling citizens simply do not go. Both kinds of states show up on this list, and the gap between them is bigger than you think. There is a whole middle tier most travelers never bother reading either. Above the 6 level 4 states and below the calmer level 2 destinations sits a reconsider travel tier, level 3, currently covering states including Baja California, Chiapas, Chihuahua, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Morelos, and Sonora. Puerto Vallarta lives inside that middle tier, which matters enormously once we reach that entry in a moment. This is exactly the kind of detail a glossy vacation ad will never mention, because a 4-tier government warning system does not fit neatly inside a caption about infinity pools. Let us start with the names that should never have made it onto your vacation shortlist in the first place. Number 11. Mazatlan. For decades, Mazatlan sold itself as the quiet, cheaper cousin of Cabo and Puerto Vallarta. Same golden beaches, same fresh shrimp cocktails sold right off the boardwalk, a fraction of the price. That price gap is exactly why so many American travelers have booked a week here without doing their homework first. Here is what the brochures leave out. Mazatlan sits inside the state of Sinaloa, and Sinaloa is one of only 6 Mexican states currently sitting at level 4 on the United States State Department scale, the highest warning level that exists, the same category used to tell citizens simply do not travel here. There is no tourist exception carved out for Sinaloa the way there is for parts of Quintana Roo or Baja California Sur. Cartel presence runs throughout the entire state, not just in one rough neighborhood on the edge of town. One travel researcher who has spent years covering safety across Mexican destinations put it about as plainly as it can be put. The price difference between Mazatlan and a place like Cabo or Puerto Vallarta is simply not worth it. Not when there are so many level 2 destinations sitting right next door on the map that deliver a nearly identical beach vacation without carrying the same risk. And that really is the whole story here. It is not that Mazatlan lacks beauty. The old town has genuine charm, the seafood is excellent, and the sunsets over the Pacific are the real deal. But when your destination shares an advisory level with places the federal government tells its own citizens to avoid outright, the math on that vacation stops making sense the moment you actually look at it closely. The final verdict on Mazatlan is simple. This is not a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. It is a level 4 warning wearing a beach resort as a disguise, and no sunset view is worth ignoring what your own government is telling you in plain language. But wait, because the next name on this list was once considered the single most glamorous destination in the entire country, and what happened to it is even harder to look away from. Number 10. Acapulco. Rewind 60 years, and Acapulco was the destination. Elvis filmed movies on these cliffs. Hollywood royalty flew down for the weekend. The cliff divers of La Quebrada became a symbol of glamorous, dangerous beauty broadcast around the world. That old reputation is still the reason so many travelers type this name first when they picture a classic Mexican beach vacation. The current reality is a very different story. Acapulco sits inside Guerrero State, another one of the 6 states currently locked at level 4, do not travel, on the United States advisory scale. Even the narrow tourist zone that officials technically still permit visits to does not carry the same clear separation from higher-risk areas that you find in destinations like Cancun or Cabo, where a single road or a lagoon physically divides the resort strip from everything else. The numbers back up the concern. In 2023 alone, official reporting recorded roughly 1,890 homicides in Acapulco. That is not a citywide estimate pulled from a rumor. That is a documented count for a single city in a single year. One travel safety writer who has spent years tracking Mexican destinations said flatly that they personally would not visit Acapulco right now, even while staying inside the tourist zone. Officially, the government guidance draws a line around a permitted tourist zone within Acapulco, technically still open to visitors, even while the rest of Guerrero sits under the strictest warning available. Researchers who track these destinations closely tend to treat that carve-out with real hesitation, since the separation here is nowhere near as clean or as physically defined as the one protecting a place like Cancun's hotel zone. That is the real tragedy of this entry. The cliffs are still there. The bay is still one of the most photogenic in the country. The old glamour has not physically disappeared, it has simply been buried underneath a security situation that no amount of nostalgia can talk you out of. Bottom line on Acapulco, this is a destination running entirely on the memory of what it used to be, and memory does not stop a bullet. Skip it. Coming up next, the destination that made international headlines for all the wrong reasons this year, and the reason it happened should worry anyone who books a trip based on last year's reviews. Number 9. Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta built its reputation as the safe, walkable, romantic option on Mexico's Pacific coast. Cobblestone streets, a lively Malecón, a bay ringed by mountains. For years it sat comfortably in the conversation as a dependable pick for a first-time visitor to Mexico. Then came February 22, 2026. On that date, the Mexican military killed Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, the cartel leader known as El Mencho, in a coordinated raid. Reporting on the operation described roughly 30 cartel members and 25 soldiers killed in the fighting. What happened in the days after is the part that should concern anyone who had a trip booked. Retaliatory violence broke out almost immediately. Gunmen blockaded highways with burning vehicles across more than half a dozen states. Tourists caught in Puerto Vallarta at the time described the scene on social media as feeling like a war zone, with smoke visible rising around the entire bay. Shelter-in-place orders went into effect across Jalisco and neighboring Nayarit. Airlines canceled flights in and out of the region with almost no warning. At the time, more than 26,000 Canadian citizens were registered as living inside Mexico, and the disruption was serious enough that Canadian employers with staff in the country began actively rewriting their internal travel safety guidelines in response. That is not the kind of reaction companies have to a minor news story. That is the kind of reaction companies have when a destination actually stops functioning normally for a period of time. Here is the part that matters most for anyone planning a trip. The situation did stabilize within roughly a month, and by the time Semana Santa, Mexico's biggest domestic travel week, arrived in early April, major destinations including Puerto Vallarta had returned to completely normal tourist operations, with no major incidents reported across the country's leading leisure corridors. So this is not a permanent verdict against the destination itself. What it is a permanent lesson about how fast a level 3 state can turn violent with almost zero warning. Puerto Vallarta sits under a reconsider travel advisory even in calm periods, one tier above the level 2 rating carried by places like Cancun or Cabo. That gap is not decorative. It is the difference between a resort corridor the government treats as broadly stable and one it does not. The final verdict on Puerto Vallarta is not a permanent ban, it is a warning label. Beautiful, yes. Historically popular, yes. But sitting one tier below Cancun and Cabo on the safety scale, in a state that just proved this year exactly how quickly things can shift, means you check the news the morning you fly, not the month you booked. Up next, the destination that has turned scamming American tourists into a documented, organized industry, complete with a criminal network the United States Treasury Department has personally sanctioned. Before we get into it, here is some context that makes this next one hit differently. The United States government does not only warn Americans about physical danger in Mexico, it separately warns about a completely different threat, one that follows travelers home long after the vacation ends. Officials describe common patterns, including strangers posing as fellow Americans in distress, asking for emergency money, fake bank overpayment notices, promises of free trips or free luggage, online romantic partners who suddenly claim to be in trouble and need funds wired quickly, and offers to help a tourist exit a timeshare investment they never should have signed in the first place. Notice how many of those patterns connect back to a single word that is about to define this entire next entry: timeshare. Number 8. Cancun. Cancun is the name most Americans picture the second someone says Mexican beach vacation. 6 million international visitors land here every year for the Hotel Zone, the all-inclusive towers, the nightclubs along Boulevard Kukulkan. On raw, violent crime against tourists, Cancun's resort strip actually performs reasonably well, and the tourist police presence here is real and visible. The problem is not bullets. The problem is a scam economy so large and so organized that one travel safety database documents 16 separate confirmed scam types operating here across 8 distinct categories, with overall scam activity rated high. This is not a handful of street hustlers working the beach. This is an industry with its own supply chain. Start with the fake hotel booking problem. Authorities in Quintana Roo have identified as many as 20 brand new fake hotel websites appearing every single month, built specifically to mimic real Cancun resorts and vacation packages. Tourists pay in full, sometimes months in advance, and arrive at check-in to discover the real hotel has never heard of them. One major financial fraud index published in 2025 ranked Cancun among the highest destinations in the entire world for exactly this kind of pre-trip booking fraud. Then there is the part that should genuinely alarm you. In February 2025, the United States Treasury Department sanctioned an entire timeshare resale fraud network with direct, confirmed links to the CJ&G cartel. This is not a low-level street con. Investigators traced more than $288 million stolen from timeshare owners through this single network, much of it wiping out retirement savings from American retirees who believed they were simply selling back a vacation property. Even the smaller, everyday version of the scam is exhausting on its own. Walk out of the airport and you will likely be approached by someone asking who your transportation is with, or claiming your pre-booked shuttle already left. That is the opening line of a timeshare pitch. The advertised 90-minute presentation routinely stretches into 4 to 6 hours of high-pressure sales tactics designed to make you feel like you are missing a once-in-a-lifetime deal. If you do sign something under pressure, Mexico's consumer protection agency, Profico, does offer a legal cooling-off window, typically 5 business days, to cancel the contract without penalty. Most tourists never learn that window exists until it is far too late. Unauthorized taxis remain the single most common complaint from Cancun visitors, according to travel researchers who track the destination closely. There is no consistent meter system across every driver, which leaves plenty of room for a quoted price to simply depend on how much a driver thinks a given tourist does not know. The restaurant bill has its own trick built in too. Several establishments in the tourist-heavy parts of Quintana Roo were caught quietly folding a gratuity into the total as a disguised service charge, meaning a polite tourist who does not read every line ends up tipping twice without ever realizing it. Enough complaints piled up that several restaurants faced real consequences over the practice. Card skimmers at certain tourist zone cash machines are another documented issue. which is why the standard advice is to withdraw cash only from machines inside an actual bank branch rather than a street corner kiosk. And around spring break specifically, official guidance has pointed to the risk of unregulated alcohol at nightclubs along the party strip, along with the more serious risk of sexual assault in that same environment, meaning the safest move at any bar here is to watch your drink get poured and never leave it unattended. Here is the bottom line on Cancun. It is not that it will hurt you physically, it is that it will take your money in 100 small, well-rehearsed ways before you even reach your hotel room, and some of those ways are now confirmed to be funding organized crime directly. But if you think Cancun's scam game is aggressive, wait until you see what happens the moment you step off the ferry into the town everyone insists is the boho, laid-back alternative. Number 7. Tulum. Tulum sells a very specific fantasy: barefoot yoga at sunrise, bohemian beach clubs built from reclaimed wood, cenotes so clear they look digitally edited. Instagram built this town's entire reputation, and for a while, the reality mostly matched the feed. The problem is that the very boom that made Tulum famous also made it one of the more expensive places in the country to get scammed. The relaxed, no-rules aesthetic that draws people here has become the perfect cover for pricing tourists have no easy way to verify. Start with transportation. The taxi fare between the beach zone and the town center, a trip that should be short and cheap, is routinely quoted at inflated rates specifically to tourists, since there is no meter system forcing consistency the way there increasingly is in bigger destinations nearby. Then there are the cenotes themselves, the swimming holes that are supposedly the entire point of visiting. Independent guides posted at the entrances to several popular cenotes have been documented charging entry fees well above the official posted price, often presenting themselves with enough confidence that visitors assume the charge is legitimate and simply pay it. The eco-parks built around the more famous natural attractions have a similar reseller problem, with third-party ticket sellers charging noticeably more than the park's own gate price for the same entry. None of this shows up in the photos. A cenote looks the same in a picture whether you paid the honest rate or got overcharged without ever realizing it. That is exactly what makes Tulum's version of this problem so effective. It hides inside an aesthetic that photographs as effortless and authentic. To be fair, Tulum is not a dangerous place in the way Mazatlan or Acapulco are dangerous. This is a financial problem, not a physical safety problem, and most visitors leave with nothing worse than a lighter wallet than they expected. Bottom line on Tulum: the boho fantasy is real, but so is the tax you pay for believing it completely. Do your research on fair prices before you land, or the town that markets itself as the anti-Cancun will nickel and dime you in ways Cancun's more organized machine never even needs to bother with. Next up is a name that will genuinely confuse you, because on paper it looks like one of the safest picks on this entire list, and one traveler's account of what happened at the rental car counter proves the paperwork does not tell the whole story. Number 6. Los Cabos. On paper, Los Cabos might be the single safest pick on this entire list. It sits inside Baja California Sur, a state that consistently posts one of the lowest homicide rates anywhere in Mexico, and it carries a Level 2 advisory, the same tier the United States government assigns to France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. That is not a marketing claim. That is the same government scale used everywhere else on this list. Geography helps enormously here too. Cabo San Lucas sits roughly 1,000 miles from Puerto Vallarta, a distance comparable to the gap between Nashville and Miami. When cartel violence flares up in mainland states like Jalisco or Sinaloa, it simply does not reach the tip of the Baja Peninsula the way headlines sometimes imply it might. The airport, the marina, and the main resort corridor have continued operating normally through unrelated unrest elsewhere in the country. Local authorities are also actively investing in keeping it that way. A new video surveillance system is currently being installed to cover El Medano Beach and downtown Cabo San Lucas, alongside an upgraded command center meant to speed up how quickly police can respond to any incident. Reports also point to an extended military and police presence planned to continue securing the corridor for several more years. This is not a destination coasting on reputation. It is one actively spending money to defend that reputation. So why is Cabo sitting at number 6 instead of near the top of this list? Because low violent crime does not mean zero exploitation, and this destination has developed its own quieter, more polished version of a shakedown. One traveler described a rental car company insisting a pre-existing factory blemish on a tire was damage the family had caused, demanding roughly $160 on the spot, while the family had a flight to catch and no real leverage to argue. Another traveler account described a family stepping off an excursion boat and being quietly pressured to pay an unofficial fee, with the father staying behind to handle it while the rest of the group left the dock. These are not violent crimes. Nobody in either story was physically hurt, but both stories share the same underlying mechanism, a moment of leverage where the tourist has somewhere to be and very little time to push back, and a local operator who knows it. The final verdict on Cabo is that your body is genuinely safer here than in almost any other destination on this entire list, but your wallet is not automatically protected just because the crime statistics look clean. Read every receipt before you sign it. That closes out the section of this list where the danger was easy to spot. Everything from here on flips the entire story, because we are about to enter the destinations Mexico barely advertises, and one of them might be better than anywhere you have already considered. Number 5. Isla Mujeres. Isla Mujeres technically sits inside Quintana Roo, the exact same state that contains Cancun, but the resemblance mostly stops at the state line on a map. The entire island is small enough to circle by golf cart in a single afternoon, and that size is precisely what works in its favor. A tourist economy this contained does not have room for the kind of large-scale, organized scam networks that thrive in a destination the size of Cancun's hotel zone. There is no equivalent to 20 new fake hotel websites appearing every month here, because there simply is not enough anonymous scale for that kind of operation to hide inside. What you get instead is a slower, quieter version of a beach vacation. The main strip has golf carts instead of rental cars, small family-run seafood spots instead of nightclub chains, and a ferry ride that acts as a natural filter, keeping the crowds more manageable than the mainland just across the water. This is not a destination that will show up on anyone's list of must-see architecture or headline-grabbing nightlife. That is honestly the entire point. Isla Mujeres works precisely because it never tried to become the next Cancun, and skipping that path also meant skipping most of the problems that came along with Cancun's growth. A quick ferry crossing is really all that separates the two places, yet the day-to-day experience on each side of that water could not feel more different. Here's the takeaway on Isla Mujeres. If you want the same turquoise water everyone flies to Quintana Roo for, minus the airport scam gauntlet, this island proves you can get it just a short ferry ride away from all of that. Next on the list is a stretch of coastline where one town has turned into a gated luxury enclave, while the surf town right next door somehow kept its soul completely intact. Number 4. Riviera Nayarit, Punta Mita, Sayulita, and San Pancho. An hour north of Puerto Vallarta, right across the state line into Nayarit, sits a stretch of coast that plays by a completely different set of rules than its more famous neighbor. Punta Mita is essentially a gated luxury enclave, with private security controlling access and golf courses replacing the open beachfront hustle you would find further south. This is the destination for a traveler who wants the resort experience with almost none of the unpredictability that comes with a state carrying a level 3 warning next door. Sayulita, just up the coast, tells a completely different story while landing in a similarly safe category. What used to be a sleepy fishing village is now a small, colorful surf town full of bars, boutique shops, and outdoor markets, and it somehow got there without losing the laid-back, bohemian identity that first drew travelers to it decades ago. A large, established expat community means English is widely spoken, and the overall crime profile here has remained low even as the town's popularity has climbed year after year. San Pancho, smaller and quieter than both of its neighbors, rounds out the trio with an even slower pace and a tight-knit, community-focused feel. Researchers who track this region describe it as the upscale alternative to Puerto Vallarta, and it has exploded in popularity among American and Canadian retirees along with remote workers over the past several years, with steady investment continuing to flow into the local tourism infrastructure to keep pace with demand. What makes this entry so useful for this list is the contrast it provides. Tulum, back at number 7, proved that a boho aesthetic can absolutely become a vehicle for overcharging tourists once it gets popular enough. Sayulita proves the opposite is possible. A town can keep its barefoot, bohemian identity and still maintain one of the lower crime profiles on this entire list. The difference is not the vibe. It is how the local tourism economy chose to grow around that vibe. The final verdict on Riviera Nayarit is that this stretch of coast matches everything Puerto Vallarta gets credit for, minus the volatility that comes from sitting inside a level 3 state. Whether you want the gated luxury version or the barefoot surf town version, both options here currently sit safely inside level 2 territory. Coming up at number 3, the surf town where solo female travelers keep saying the same thing, and it has nothing to do with the waves. Number 3. Puerto Escondido. Puerto Escondido started life as a fishing village and grew into a surf destination almost by accident, once word got out about a wave known internationally as the Mexican Pipeline. That wave still draws serious surfers from around the world every single season. What keeps showing up in traveler accounts, though, has less to do with the surf and more to do with how the town simply feels to walk around in. Multiple solo female travelers who have spent real time here describe consistently feeling safe, a detail worth paying attention to given how often that specific demographic gets asked about safety before booking anywhere in Mexico. That does not mean Puerto Escondido gets a completely free pass. The standard local advice is to take a taxi at night rather than walk the beaches after dark, and it is worth following that advice rather than testing it yourself. Beyond the surf and the safety record, there is more happening here than most travelers expect. A growing digital nomad community has moved in over the past several years, drawn by the same slower pace and lower cost of living that makes this town appealing to short-term visitors as well. Multiple beaches within a short distance of each other, including Playa Carrizalillo, Playa Zicatela, Playa Bacocho, Puerto Angelito, and Playa Marinero, each offer a slightly different version of the same coastline, from calm swimming water to serious surf breaks. None of these beaches come wrapped in the high-rise towers or nightclub chains that define a destination like Cancun, and that absence is exactly the point for the traveler this town tends to attract. The takeaway on Puerto Escondido is this: a destination does not need 5-star towers or a fortified resort strip to feel legitimately safe. Sometimes a slower-paced surf town with a strong local community does the job just as well, and does it for a fraction of the price tag attached to the bigger names on this list. Just south of here sits a destination with 9 separate bays and 36 beaches, and almost nobody outside of Mexico has heard of it yet. Number 2. Huatulco. Huatulco is one of the more underrated names on this entire list, and the crime numbers back that claim up directly rather than just implying it. One crime database that ranked 53 separate Mexican cities using official statistics recorded roughly 294 incidents per 100,000 population here, placing Huatulco among the lowest rates of any coastal destination in the entire country. That is not a vague reputation. That is a specific number sitting near the very bottom of a real ranking. Part of the explanation is structural. Huatulco was built around a self-contained, all-inclusive resort model layered on top of a relatively small local population, which means the tourism economy here stays largely self-enclosed rather than spilling out into the kind of sprawling, anonymous scam infrastructure that thrives in a much bigger destination like Cancun. There simply are not enough moving pieces for that kind of organized fraud network to take root the same way. Geographically, This place has range most single beach towns cannot match. 9 separate bays and 36 beaches give visitors an actual choice of atmosphere, from the cruise ship dock and well-maintained walkway at Bahia de Santa Cruz, to the gated, heavily private resort bays at Tangolunda, all the way to the small, walkable town center at La Crucecita, where most day-to-day life actually happens. A steadily growing digital nomad presence, particularly around La Crucecita, suggests this is not just a quiet secret among vacationers. People who have the flexibility to live anywhere are increasingly choosing to live here specifically, which tends to be one of the clearest signals that a destination is doing something right, beyond just looking nice in photos. Bottom line on Huatulco, this is essentially the version of an all-inclusive beach vacation that Cancun's marketing department has spent years pretending to sell you, except here the numbers actually support the pitch, instead of hiding a scam economy underneath it. Next up is a name that will actually surprise you, because it sits in the exact same state as one of the worst entries on this entire list, and somehow still came out on top. Number 1. Ixtapa Zihuatanejo. Ixtapa Zihuatanejo sits inside Guerrero State, the exact same state that contains Acapulco, our number 10 entry and one of the most troubled names on this entire countdown. Same state, same coastline region, completely different outcome. Ixtapa Zihuatanejo has a population of roughly 124,000 residents, and in that same crime database, ranking 53 Mexican cities by official statistics, it recorded roughly 274 incidents per 100,000 population, the single lowest rate of any city in the entire survey. Not the lowest among beach towns. The lowest, period, out of every city measured. Researchers point to geographic isolation and a strong, self-contained tourism infrastructure as the likely explanation, essentially the same formula working in Huatulco's favor, except here the contrast is sharper because of exactly which state this town happens to sit inside. Both towns share the same underlying pattern: a smaller local population, a resort economy built to stay self-contained, and enough physical distance from the rural corridors driving up a state's overall numbers. This is genuinely the most important lesson buried anywhere in this entire list. A state-level travel advisory is a useful starting point, and you should absolutely still read it before booking anything. But it is not the finish line. Guerrero as a whole carries a level 4 warning because of what is happening in Acapulco and the rural areas surrounding it. That same blanket warning tells you almost nothing useful about conditions in Ixtapa Zihuatanejo, a town that the actual crime data places at the very top of the safety rankings for the entire country. Beyond the safety numbers, this is also simply a beautiful, relatively low-key destination, with a working fishing town feel in Zihuatanejo itself, sitting right alongside the more polished, purpose-built resort strip in Ixtapa, a short drive away. You get both versions of a Mexican beach vacation within a few miles of each other. The final verdict on Ixtapa Zihuatanejo is the sharpest proof this entire list has to offer that state-level advisories can seriously mislead you if you stop reading after the headline. Guerrero scared you off at number 10 for very good reason. This town, sitting inside that exact same state, is the safest beach vacation on this entire countdown. Before we close this out completely, one bonus fact ties the whole list together, because it involves the only 2 states in the entire country sitting above every single resort we just covered. Yucatan and Campeche are, right now, the only 2 states anywhere in Mexico sitting at level 1 on the United States Advisory Scale, the mildest tier that exists, the same rating assigned to routine domestic travel within safe regions of the United States itself. Every resort on this countdown, Ixtapa Zihuatanejo included, sits at level 2 or worse. 16 other Mexican states, plus Mexico City, sit one tier below at level 2, the same tier as Cancun, Tulum, and Los Cabos. These 2 states stand alone above all of them, and almost none of the marketing built around this part of Mexico ever mentions that fact directly. Mérida is the reason most travelers actually encounter this part of the map, and it rarely gets mentioned in the same breath as Cancun or Tulum, despite sitting inside the exact same peninsula. The city routinely tops rankings for urban safety across all of Latin America, not just within Mexico, and it does so while offering exactly the kind of colonial architecture, restored mansions along wide boulevards, and deep-rooted Yucatec cuisine that most visitors assume they can only find in a much riskier destination further south. It did not earn a numbered spot on this list, since it is a colonial city rather than a beach resort, but travelers already flying into Cancun can easily extend a trip here, turning what would otherwise be a purely beach-focused vacation into something with genuine cultural depth, all without leaving the safest advisory tier in the entire country. Chichen Itza sits within reach as well, giving visitors one of the most significant Mayan archaeological sites anywhere without needing to gamble on a riskier region to see it. Think back to where this list started. Mazatlan, sitting at level 4, forced into direct comparison against destinations right next door offering the same beach without the same risk. Acapulco, running entirely on borrowed glamour from 6 decades ago. Yucatan and Campeche are the flip side of that entire story. 2 states that were never marketed as a party destination, never sold themselves with the same aggressive social media machine as Tulum, and simply let an entire state government advisory rating do the talking instead. So there is the full list, from the destinations you need to cancel tonight, to the beach town sharing a state with the worst name on this entire list, plus one bonus fact about the safest corner of the map that almost nobody checks before booking. The real lesson buried inside all 11 of these entries is not that Mexico is dangerous, and it is not that Mexico is perfectly safe either. It is that treating this entire country as one single destination is the actual mistake. 31 states plus Mexico City, each carrying its own individual advisory rating, each capable of sitting worlds apart from its neighbor despite sharing a border on the map, the way Acapulco and Ixtapa Zihuatanejo prove better than anywhere else on this list. Before you book your next trip, do not just search "Is Mexico safe?" Search the specific state your resort sits inside, then search the specific town, because as this entire countdown just proved, those 2 answers can be completely different from each other. The official travel advisory page run by the United States State Department updates regularly, and it remains the single most useful free resource for checking exactly where your specific destination currently stands before you hand over a deposit. And remember what happened to Puerto Vallarta earlier on this list. A calm state can turn violent within days, so check that page again the week you fly, not just the week you booked. And remember the word that kept resurfacing throughout this entire list, the one tied to Cancun, to the airport pickup lines, and to the sanctioned cartel network. Timeshare. If anyone offers you a free breakfast, a free tour, or a free anything in exchange for 90 minutes of your vacation, you now know exactly what that 90 minutes actually costs. If this list saved you from booking the wrong resort, you already know what to do next.